All right, and we should be live for the Steelers Depot live stream here on Monday, July 27th. Let me pull up the stream, make sure, Dave, you have it as well. And Dave Bryan is here as always. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Just cracked open a fresh Diet Mountain Dew and gonna be chasing that with a cup of coffee.
living large over there.
I'm
Uh,
living life. I'm
uh
living life to the fullest here.
got a lot of guys in the chat here already, including Mutated Genome, Kalema, Steeler fan, K Jackson, Xander, James is here. As always, we're here for an hour answering any and all of your Steelers questions. Though we have a lot of news to talk about, we'll talk about during the stream and, of course, during tomorrow's terrible podcast. And Dave, you're starting off with a question: where will Minka rank on the top 100 tonight? Is he definitely in the range tonight? Is that confirmed?
I don't know for sure, no, but I'm using that deductive reasoning, which
Okay.
sometimes is not, especially when it comes to the NFL Network's top 100, probably not wise to do. But they're going 71 to I think 40 tonight,
Okay, because I thought
and
I saw a tweet that listed the teams of the players that would be in the range, and I don't think I saw Pittsburgh on there, but I may be wrong about that.
I don't know. I missed that if indeed it was up there and who posted it. So if they're not in there tonight, then that means both T.J. Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick will be in the top 40 then.
Yeah, Watt, you kind of knew was going to be top 40, and if Minka can be there too, then well deserved for him. Hey, Jason. Hey, Hugo. Again, we're here to answer your questions for the next hour. There was a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily good news for the Steelers. It's mostly pandemic related. The Steelers have placed Aaron Springs, a defensive back out of Oregon, played in the XFL, on the reserve COVID-19 list. Now, to be clear, that does not mean he has the coronavirus. He also could be in close contact with somebody who had it, and this is his quarantine. So being placed on this list does not mean 100% that he has contracted the virus, but certainly want to be cautious and careful with him and hope that he gets healthy soon if he does have the virus. So that is the big piece of Steelers news coming across the wire today.
Yeah, we'll see within the next 24 hours or so if the Steelers decide to enter training camp with an 80-man roster or a 90-man roster. Obviously, if they choose to go with a 90-man roster, they'll have to kind of do a split squad type situation there. To me, that would be kind of a pain in the you know what, but
Hmm.
uh, we'll see. You definitely can't rule it out. Not every team. Some teams have begun the cuts down. Some have already cut 280. Some are about halfway there. I have a feeling tomorrow's waiver wire is going to be the official transaction sheet's going to be mighty full, and we probably won't know about the Steelers. I mean, this is kind of a new kind of going to try to probably treat this like a 53 cut down day where the
Hmm.
Steelers turn them in at the last minute there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Once again, I have no idea if they're going to go to 80 or 90 right now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows. My guess is they'll go to 80 because A, most teams seem to be doing that, and B, as you said, if you stick at 90, you have to do split squads, and with them already at Heinz Field and logistics adding more logistical problems to it, probably not what most teams want to do. But you're right, it's like the old cut to 75, although we don't know for sure if they're going to cut to 80. They don't have to cut to 80 until August 16th, the day before the first pad of practice. So we're up in the air right now, and we'll just have to see what happens. All right, we got some questions in. Mutated Genome asks the first of the day. Says, does it really matter if Big Ben is no longer a tier one quarterback? He wasn't tier one when he won his first Super Bowl either. That is in response to an article I'll pull up that does not have Ben as a tier one quarterback, according to NFL coaches and executives. I don't care. He's good enough to be the straw that stirs the drink for this offense and to help lead them to a Super Bowl, complemented by hopefully a top five at worst defense. And that's all that really matters, in my opinion.
Now, once again, this is just something to talk about to kill the time here. Where we're at that point of the offseason where it's rankings and these kind of articles. Mike Sando, he does. I think Mike Sando does a great job on this. He did it for I think the first 5 years of this. He was with ESPN, and this would be an annual this time of year quarterback tier rankings, if you will. He's since the last couple years been at the Athletic and done it over there. Does it matter that Ben that he's not considered first tier. Absolutely not. No, but it is something to talk about. I think my biggest thing with this is the fact that I'm not, I think it's okay to call him a second tier quarterback. Obviously, the thing that I kind of have issue is do Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Jackson and Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson, both deserve to be ranked ahead of him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, obviously the season that Jackson has had, I know they're totally different styles, and so it's a little apples to oranges. And with Ben coming off the injury, and obviously from an outsider point of view, 38-year-old quarterback off major elbow surgery, I get that. So I have no problem with where Ben ended up in the rankings, to be honest with you.
Yeah, look, I'm not taking anything away from Watson. I think Watson and Jackson both had tremendous seasons. Now Jackson, you know, I'm of the old adage of okay, you show me one time, now show me again.
Hmm.
Now obviously Watson's been around a little bit longer, and look, I'm not gonna, I'm not discounting. Once again, I'm not discounting the season, the MVP season, and all that Jackson had. He's fantastic, but just doing that once make automatically propel you above a quarterback such as Ben Roethlisberger. And by the way, if memory serves me, I didn't Jackson and the Ravens go go one and done in the playoffs there as the top seed. So look, once again, not want to take anything away from him, but I just curious how many people would actually put Jackson above Roethlisberger after just one good season.
I think most people would, and I think that's fair. I mean, reigning MVP over again, a quarterback off major elbow surgery. Will that hold? Who knows? I'm still excited for Ben to come back, but I think it is certainly fair from an outsider national perspective. One of the executives interviewed that was pretty down on Ben, and I'll highlight it here for the listeners, said, "I'm concerned. Ben is a little bit like Philip Rivers, a statue back there now, and there are durability concerns. Things have to be right, and he does not have the same weapons he had the last time he played for a long period of time." Someone also made a pass to didn't look as good without AB, which I'm not sure what they base that in, considering it's 6 quarters basically without Antonio Brown.
And even if you want to go 10 quarters,
Right, the
because he did
Bengals. Yeah.
the Bengals game. Yeah, and I even wrote that in that article. There was the fact that okay, yeah, it's been 10 quarters. Let's wait a little bit before we throw out a comment
Hmm.
like that. The durability thing. Look, that's a gimme putt there based on what happened to him last year and obviously throughout his
I like
his
that
career.
phrase, a gimme putt.
Yeah, basically, everybody's going to point to,
Right.
well, Ben's always gets dinged up and misses time, and this, that, and the other. Okay, I'm not even concentrating on that, but to say that he's not the same quarterback without AB after really essentially 10 quarters of play is silly,
Hmm.
in my eyes, and I, the last time we saw him play a full season in 2018, the last thing I thought was, boy, he's a statue Philip Rivers like,
Right. I mean, he's not obviously backyard Ben anymore, but he can still move, and he is not at the Rivers type level.
Right. Look, I mean, the whole 2018, a good portion of that 2018 season anyway was him getting rid of that ball quick. So how can you accuse him of being a statue back there when he was one of the quarterbacks that got the ball out the quickest throughout the season there?
Well, I
So,
guess you say just lack of mobility. He just isn't as mobile as he used to be. And
okay.
then that's one reason why I guess he'd be getting the ball out quicker. But again, I don't agree with the assessment. He's not at Philip Rivers, Peyton Manning, complete lack of mobility.
So is he second tier? Yeah, I think that's fair. Once again, the only kind of issue I take with it is ranking him behind both Watson and Jackson. I could almost stomach him being ranked behind Watson more so than I can Jackson. But that it's only because man Jackson's had the one good season. Let's
Hmm.
see what Jackson does this year.
Jason Tatum asks, with the lack of preseason, do you think we see more subs and rotations in the first couple weeks until players are in football shape? A very good question. There are only so many times you can sub, and there's drop off in talent concerns. I think at skill positions, you could see it. Certainly, running back would be one where you already kind of have rotation built in. But that will be a concern because there is no on ramp for these guys. There are very limited on ramp for these guys. So if you're a young guy with a big role, you're going to really have to have your snaps monitored. If you're Chase Claypool, granted, it's not going to have a big role, but you get the point. If you're a young player around the league in a pretty big role, conditioning is going to certainly be something that's an element of this. So, short answer to the skill positions for the young guys, yes. To the more veteran, established guys like Cam Hayward, their snap total I think is going to remain relatively the same.
pray for an overcast day in Nashville in week 4.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
That's about my only really concern, I think, and I'm glad that game's not earlier in the season there. But
Mhm.
really, I don't expect a lot of substitution. These guys should be ready, I would think, come week 1. And once again, get them in that heat in Nashville there, and if that sun's beating down on them, remember they like to usually hold up those kind of makeshift. You remember what they've done in the past in Tampa Bay, and I think even in Nashville before too. They have those kind of the people on the sideline holding up those kind of overhangs or whatnot for to get some shade there. So
Mhm. Right.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But overall, right now is where we sit here right now. Now, obviously, we don't know how this all assumes training camp goes on as scheduled there. But I'm not so worried about any kind of heavy rotation yet.
And at least week one's a night game, so that'll help a little bit out there for the
Yeah.
Giants. Suleiman Jelani, would you guys say the biggest concern heading into week one is the offense starting being rusty with Ben having been out a while and no OTAs and mini camps? Yeah, I think obviously there's more question marks around the offense than the defense just because of the nature of the unknown with Ben, and the defense is so many guys returning and there are more unknowns and a more youthful group overall with the offense. I think just general rust in general is probably a concern. So I think you're pretty much on the money there, Suleiman.
I think one thing to the Steelers' advantage here, especially in Week 1, you play in a team with some new personnel and a new coaching staff there, and this is once again this is a Steelers team. We've said it all off season, especially since free agency ended. This is a Steelers team that's got a lot of experience, a lot of carryover from the 2019 team as well too. So in my opinion, the defense really shouldn't be moving slow at all. I wouldn't think. And as far as rust with the offense, I mean, a lot of these guys have already played together before. So could there be a little bit rust? I mean, yeah, I mean that's always going to be the talk until now between the start of the season there, especially when it comes to Roethlisberger and him not playing since week 2 of the season last year there. But it's something to have in the back of your mind. But as of right now, because of the continuity that they have, hey, I think they should come out guns a blazing.
Yeah, I hope so. We've talked about all off season the importance and the value of the veteranship, the stability, the consistency from a top down, head coach, coordinators, GM, obviously quarterback, all those things give the Eagles, I think, a clear advantage. Heading into the season, though, everything will be affected and impacted by how disrupted this offseason process has been. Again, Dave and I are here for an hour. Be sure to leave your Steelers questions in the chat. Dave and I will be sure to answer them. Anything, anytime.
A quick announcement here too for people, something to look forward to this week. Alex Highsmith is going to be the subject of a media Zoom call on Tuesday, so you get that to look forward to. We'll cover that thing top to bottom and inside out on SteelersDepot.com. On Wednesday, I believe you have Randy Feetner going to talk to the media via Zoom call, and all this will happen between, I think, somewhere between around noonish Eastern time, like that. And then on Thursday, you get a doubleheader there. You get Mike Tomlin and Chase Claypool. Both are scheduled to have Zoom media calls with the media, obviously, on Thursday there. So should be a lot to talk about as the week progresses here.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Good to hear from those guys as camp again starts tomorrow. Feels very weird. This training camp technically starts tomorrow. The first couple days are just COVID testing. They really won't even get into the facility until early August. Let's see. Aaron
Yeah,
Young.
no hitting until the 17th.
Very weird. Very weird.
And I got a notice today too that look, media's not even to be no media is going to be allowed at Heinz Field until the 17th, and then even then it's going to be select media members from there to cover practices. I think they're going to have what they call a pool photographer there as well too. So it's going to be very limited access to the team even once the 17th rolls around. And in the meantime, it's all going to be, from here until the 17th of August, it's going to be nothing but media Zoom calls.
Man, that's going to be very different. K Jackson, Pittsburgh almost skipped his question, or his comment, I should say. The Steelers trade for Minka doesn't seem too pricey now, considering what the Seahawks paid for Jamal Adams. LOL. LOL, indeed. Yeah. The Seahawks gave up the farm, and Pittsburgh certainly didn't. So there's, Colbert's, he gets some criticism, but the dude, when it comes to trades, I think does a pretty good job overall. AB, Bryant, Minka, Devin Bush, I think all positive marks there.
Absolutely. Now, look, obviously Jamal is already an established, safety, whereas Mika was not. But
Hmm.
even so, the Steelers definitely did good on that trade compared to the Seahawks. That's a
Hmm.
lot to give up, man. I mean,
It
I mean,
was.
he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Jamal Adams fan, but that's a lot to give up.
It is, and for the Steelers, at least they don't have to pay Minka like an established safety. Like I guess Jamal is playing on his rookie deal, but Steelers have some more time with Minka, at least, which is good news for them. Aaron Young asks, who will lead the team in receiving yards from the wide receiver position in 2020? Dave, I'll let you start this one.
Man, I think Juju has the better shot, possibly too.
Hmm.
It should be close. I don't think Deontay's going to hit 1,000 yards for what it's worth. Could he? Yeah. Will he? Yeah, I think that's pushing a little bit there. I really like Juju's chances to push the to push the 1,000 yard mark a little bit more than I do Deontay's. But they probably will be probably within, I don't know, 200 or 300 yards with each other by the time the smoke clears. But if Juju stays healthy, man, I don't see any reason why he can't bust a couple of long ones and all, and end up with, I don't know, 89, 90 catches and 1,200 or so yards.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'll give Juju the slight edge to Deontay Johnson. Those are obviously the two names that are really competing, excuse me, for the answer to that question. James Washington's not going to really be a threat in that regard. I think just the rapport with Ben is going to be helpful. Juju playing out of the slot, and how much the offense goes over the middle with at least a healthy Juju. I think that'll be important. But Deontay will be close, but I think Juju will get him by, like you said, maybe 200 yards or so. Maybe 1,100 to 900 might be a good way to kind of divvy that up.
And that won't be a bad problem to have if they put up those kind of numbers together, because once
Hmm.
again, one would hope that Ben's not having to throw for 5,000 yards or anything like that, or 5,000 would be the max, hopefully, in regard to him. But I mean, if the offense is given some short fields to work with, and has some couple late leads, early on in the season, and really throughout the season, then that should bode well as well, moving forward as well. I don't think you need a 1,500 yard receiver to be successful this year when it comes to the 2020 Steelers.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. Let's see. K Jackson, Pittsburgh asks another question. Do you think Ben uses all this media disrespect as fuel for 2020? I believe Ben will reassert himself as a top tier quarterback when he returns. Yeah, I think Ben, to an extent, sure, because Ben's that super competitive guy, and I'm sure he sees at least some of the headlines. He's not on social media, so he probably misses a lot of this stuff, but I'm sure he gets a sense for some of the criticism that's being sent his way. But I think just his own competitive nature to prove it to himself and the hunger to go win another Super Bowl are going to be the main drivers behind his hopeful, comeback 2020 season.
I don't believe he's cutting everything out and hanging it up on the refrigerator or anything like that. I
Hmm.
think he's been through this rodeo enough times and all like that. Now, obviously, does he see some of this stuff and like the Jay Glazer comments
Right.
and stuff like that? Yeah, but look, I mean, I think Ben has confidence in his game. I think Ben has a method to kind of his madness of getting ready for the season and all like that. So yeah, a lot of it probably falls on deaf ears, if I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Jason Tatum as top three camp battles: Banner versus Chooks, Vince versus UG3, Paxton versus Duck. I think that definitely Banner and Chooks is probably the top battle in terms of the closest one and the most impactful in terms of the Steelers' outlook in terms of who's going to be starting this year. What are some other camp battles that unfortunately we won't get to see, but can at least theorize about right now, Dave?
I think you could potentially talk Filer, Stefan Wisniewski, somewhere down on the list. I mean, obviously we expect Filer to get the first reps on that and win it. So it would obviously be down the list, but it'd be something maybe at least to pay attention to when it comes to that. I think Devlin Hodges versus Paxton Lynch is going to be, for however many snaps they could get in there, might be decent to hear about. And can a guy like UG3 push? A guy like maybe Vince Williams for that inside linebacker spot. Logic and probably odds tell you no, but I mean, if we're going through this team, we're trying to pick out things that because look, I mean, let's face it, a lot of these are already decided. You would think, even though Mike Tomlin would get on us right now and say, "Oh no, every position's up for grab, every roster spot's up for grabs." We know that just isn't true. It sounds great when you print it and put it on a bumper sticker, but that's about it there. But I would say, obviously Chooks and Banner, would I think is the prime one everybody's got their eyes on.
Yeah, I think so too. I think another interesting one is Jalen Samuels versus Kareth White for that fourth running back spot. I think Samuels has the inside edge right now. Is the more established guy, the more well-rounded guy. But it was up to me. I would take Kareth White, the back receiver positions. Ryan Switzer versus Deion Kane. Both, of course, could make it. I think Switzer has definitely the inside track right now. Again, for being a veteran, the connection with Ben, that's going to be helpful in an environment like this. And the backup safety roles too. To an extent, Jordan Dangerfield, but also Marcus Allen versus Antoine Brooks Jr. should be interesting, along with the ones that you mentioned, Dave. Patrick Donovan says, recently watched AFC Championship game against Baltimore. Made me sick to see Swede and the walk-in touchdown drop. Yeah, that one was really crushing. At least he got the crackback block on like the next play or two later, and the game had a happy ending. So at least there's all that, Patrick. Papa Beanos 2-1. I think Juju would do better if Deontay Johnson being the number one and Juju being the number two. Look at how Juju did as a number two in 2018 when he had AB as a number one. Do you guys agree? Those things are more meaningless to me. I just look at where you line up positionally. And Juju's the slot receiver, Deontay's the X. They don't even play the same position. So I don't know how you would structure your offense differently to call Deontay the one versus Juju the two. I don't know if it really means a whole lot because they're just both going to be starters.
Yeah, that whole number one, it sounds great for fantasy, right?
Right.
But in today's NFL, unless it's just way over, unless you just have, that superstar. I mean, obviously Antonio Brown would have been regarded as a number one,
Mm-hmm.
but really outside of that, I think it's important to know the roles, the positions that these guys play, whether it be the X or the Z or the slot, and whether or not a receiver is one of the two wide receivers on the field when the team only utilizes two wide receiver personnel groupings, those kind of things there. I don't really get caught up in that. I get caught up more in that when I look at drafting for fantasy purposes there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you would interpret the question or the comment as run the offense through Deontay as your number one and don't run it through Juju, would that be better? I'm not really convinced that it would be, though.
No, not yet. Anyways, I
Mm-hmm.
think we'll see what happens after this year. But
Right.
if Deontay takes that next step and becomes that guy, then yeah, possibly. But there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of games this year where Ben has two or more receptions to probably seven different guys on the field, I would think, right? You're looking at James
Mm-hmm.
Conner going to catch a healthy share. You would think Ebron, McDonald could be good for at least two receptions a game. Juju, obviously Deontay, James Washington. At some point, you're probably going to get Claypool, maybe a little bit more involved there. So
Samuels
spread.
could catch a couple if he makes the
Yeah,
team.
if Samuels makes the team, spread the football around.
Yeah, for sure. A guess. Do you believe Mason Rudolph earned I'm assuming earned the right, or should whatever the question is, or the sentence is not complete. But do you believe Mason Rudolph has earned the backup job? Is basically what a guest is saying. I say no. I don't think anyone has earned it, but the Steelers are gonna seem to grant it anyway.
I mean, I think it's just a process of look. We got this is a guy that we drafted early. Whether or not he's earned it, look, he definitely lost the job against the Bengals last year. I
Hmm.
mean, so if you want to get technical about it, he got benched in that game against the Bengals, and on that throw that went into the feet of Deontay. You knew it was coming at that point. That pass right there, after he made it, you could feel that the change was coming. Now, did he do enough to get it back, or did Duck just not not win it back? I mean, the answer is yes, I guess. Either way, there. Look, Kevin Colbert has made it clear that and Tomlin and really Art Rooney the second for that part have said that Mason's going to be a number two. So. Uh, is it a byproduct of them having a higher draft pick and being a more higher pedigree guy? Yeah, I think so. And once again, it wasn't many snaps before he got hurt again in the Jets, but I liked what I saw in the game against the Jets. Now, was that enough for us to say he deserves the number two spot? Top to bottom, I mean, I don't think you could put all that on the 30 snaps right there. But fact of the matter, really, it doesn't matter. He's going to be the number two to start camp.
Right, he is. So again, I agree. It was really just out of the draft position, their investment in him, their hope that he's the guy, and the lack of other options. But that's where you sit with Mason Rudolph. Suleiman asks, chances of Juju and Connor staying after the season if they have good years, especially if Ben advocates the team to do so. I ask because I feel like Ben played a part in Ebron in free agency and drafting Claypool. I think Connor is gone. Juju, if he has a good year, we'll talk franchise tag, and then of course David wrote about the other day, the cap implications. We know the floor is 175 million. It could be higher than that, but that will create some obvious tough choices, not only for Pittsburgh, but the rest of the NFL.
You guys better get out there and start buying some team merchandise and signing up for a Game Pass and
Steelers
and
bake sale.
and get your direct TV subscriptions done because the NFL is going to need a bunch of revenue here. Yeah, the floor, at least we know what the floor is, and that's
Mhm.
175 million. Now, is it easy to work off of that number? Not really. But you have to assume that that's the worst case scenario, and I have to imagine that you have plans in place that work off of such a scenario as well too. If you're Omar Khan,
Right.
you probably have different stages of this thing. I would think, and I'm guessing here, I don't know, but I have talked to Joe, several people I trust and some former agents on this as well too. I really think that the league is hoping and planning on at least the final number coming in remaining what it was this year, which was 198.2 million, if memory serves me. Now, look, just because you have this floor, they could meet again early in the offseason before immediately after the Super Bowl and get together NFL and NFLPA and say, look, do we really want the cap to be 175 million, or do we want it a little bit higher here? My guess is won't be the low, but let's assume it is okay
Hmm.
for that matter. Here's the other thing that we still don't completely understand yet, and I don't even think Joe Corey has some questions about this as well too. Will the franchise tag? How will the tag work next offseason? Will it work off of you know the new limit on the cap of 175 million, or will it work off of the higher number as well too? Because look, I mean, if you tag a back-to-back player, say Dak Prescott with the Cowboys, that's going to be 120% of this year's tag amount.
Hmm.
Now, how will the tag numbers come in relative to the cap with the cap going down? Will there actually be a decrease some in the franchise tag numbers? Either way, I don't think if you had, let's say you had a decrease in the franchise tag number on the wide receiver position, I think it's still going to be way too rich for the Steelers' blood because you have to at least be able to afford that tag amount before you even work out a long-term deal with Juju.
Hmm.
So, and I just don't see them working out a long-term deal with Juju or Connor prior to the tag deadline there. So, from where I sit right now, and really even before the whole, once the team drafted Claypool and once the whole COVID thing got going and all like that, man, I'll be surprised if either one of those guys are back in a Steelers uniform in 2021. Quite honestly, now of the two, I would think Juju has the best chance.
Hmm.
But once again, if the cap's 175 million, you're going to have to get mighty creative with that, and then hope that maybe you're playing with a reduced tag amount on Juju, and go from there. It's going to be tough, man. And if Juju has the kind of season everybody's hoping he has and has a bounce back season, then the only way you're going to keep him is placing a tag on him, at least initially, before you work out a long term deal with him.
Yeah, we'll see. It's certainly harder to be optimistic given the salary cap situation. I agree. The Eagles have to have a plan for the cap at the floor of 175, a plan for maybe somewhere in, at the cap where it's flat, and a plan in the middle. And that's kind of the framework, and you figure out what plan is reality whenever the time comes after the season. Pablo is here. Says hello, everyone. Hey, Pablo. Rick Williams, is 1,000 yards really that big of a mark for the receivers, assuming a 16 or 17 game season? No, not really. 16 games is 60 yards a game on average, so it's not what it was back when there was 12 and 14 game seasons, but it still is a nice milestone. And,
We say that, but how many different Steelers have managed to have 1,000-yard
that's true.
seasons?
That's a good point.
What 13 or 14, something
Hmm.
around like that. Now, obviously, a couple of them did it multiple times, and you're only going to have the opportunity of X amount of receivers every year to hit that mark there. So, no, it's not that big a deal, I don't think, in today's landscape, because how many receivers every year end up hitting 1,000 yards? And heck,
Like a
I can
dozen.
think some running backs now can even hit the 1,000-yard receiving mark. But I mean, usually you have what, 20? How many how many, if you were to guess, had 1,000-yard seasons last year receiving, Alex?
Yeah, 15 to 18, maybe pushing 20.
Let me see if I can pull that
Yeah.
data up
Also,
for you
did
real quick
Lynn
here.
Swan ever have a 1,000 yard season? I'm thinking no, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
Let's
Obviously,
see.
the era and run oriented the Steelers were, especially before the last two Super Bowls. I don't know if Swan ever hit 1,000.
29 players had a
Really?
1,000-yard receiving seasons last year.
Dang. A little more than I thought. I guess with tight ends and all that, you factor those. What about Lynn Swan? What was his highest yards in a season?
I don't remember him.
I think it
I
was like
don't remember
900
him.
something. I don't think he ever got a
Yeah,
thousand.
I don't remember him ever having one.
You want to look that up, or you able to look?
Yeah, I'll look it up real
Okay,
quick
yeah,
here.
because then my screen will shift and all that. While you do that, go to another comment here from Russ.
His career high was 880 yards in 1978.
All right, there you go. Yeah, I
His
didn't think
his his career high in receptions was 61.
just a different era. And then his career was relatively short, and by the time he retired, the Steelers were finally getting into more passing offense, like late '70s, early '80s. But yeah, this first couple of years they were just a run-oriented offense. Russ Obenstein, I almost missed a live show a little late, but I made it. How are you, Alex and Dave? Russ, I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well.
Hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit.
Whatever that means. K. Jackson Pittsburgh, with a potentially lowered cap next year from this year, the Steelers will be severely challenged to sign all their players, won't they? Watt has to be a priority, don't you think? Yes to the Watt question. That'll still come after the offseason. That'll be this summer, so for a year from now. But yeah, they're not going to sign everybody. I mean, the roster will look very different from where it stands today in 2020.
Can you pull that potential impact
Yes.
article up for him, Alex? There, and look. Here's the thing about T.J. Watt. He's already had his 5th-year option picked up for next season. So that's a little over $10 million. So they're probably not going to do anything with him right out of the bat. This time next year, uh, write it down right now. This time next year is probably when negotiations probably going to start heating up with T.J. Watt on a long-term extension. They don't have to do it now. Can they do anything before then? Yes, obviously they can. But typically, we see the Steelers wait until they get into training camp on first big contracts with players who are technically, I guess, on their second contracts there. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen with Watt. Watt's not the issue here. The big issue is all of your players that are going to become unrestricted free agents. We already talked about James Conner and Juju. Man, it doesn't stop there. You got Matt Filer, you got Mike Hilton, you got Cameron Sutton. Who else is up
Bud
after this year?
Dupree, Villanueva.
Bud Dupree, Villanueva, Tyson Alualu, right? He's up, even though I don't think
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna be back. Zach Banner might even be
Right.
too rich for the Steelers' blood after this season, depending on what all transpires with him. Uh, you got a lot of guys now. Here's the thing: it's easy right now to go through and already draw up your a few cap casualties. They're either going to be cap casualties or you're going to have to cut down to the minimum. There's no two ways about it. Now, here's the thing, and you got to look at this kind of league wide too. What's the market going to be like for, let's say, a Vance McDonald or a Vince Williams if they were to get cut next spring? What is the market going to look like for those guys?
Pretty light, knowing that the rest of the league is just trying to keep their own guys too, and there'll be this purge among rosters, so their market's going to be light.
Like minimum light.
Close. I don't know how close I want to say the minimum, but obviously, I mean, there won't be much of a market. Free agency will look differently if teams are just trying to get under the cap just to start.
And look, you don't have many middle class players on the Steelers to start with, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you got the haves really and the have nots, or at least that will pretty much what it boils down to. Look, I think Mike Hilton's gone. I think Matt Filer's gone. I think James Conner's gone. I think there's a good chance Juju's gone. Now, on the flip side, some of these guys that are about to hit free agency, what is the market going to even be like for them if you're dealing with a $175 million cap number there?
Hmm.
There going to be a lot of teams. There will be some teams with cash and cap to spend for sure.
Hmm.
But what if you are a middle class, a middle of the road free agent? Obviously, if you're the Bud Duprees out there, you probably got and you have a good season this year, you're probably not going to have a lot to worry about. But what if you're kind of that middle of the road? What if you're that Matt Filer? Probably has a great season as the Steelers left guard. Not great though. Just becomes kind of your middle of your road starter who has position flexibility. He's not going to He's probably not going to cash in huge or what he thinks he would have in a normal year in non-COVID free agency there. So that's something else for these players to think about as well too. All that said, even if the Steelers come with a below market kind of offer on these guys, they're they're going to still struggle to get a lot of these guys underneath the cap, and especially if they're dealing with a 175 million cap number. Now, yeah, they could probably do something with Ben, but I'm telling you right now, I've looked at this several times already. Uh, Even if you don't give Ben any new money as part of a deal, and let's say you added 4 bogus years onto his contract, and then you turn the max amount of his roster bonus and the max amount that you could of his base salary into a signing bonus, you're still going to only save what I put out on Twitter, like 10 million, 10 or
Four
11 million,
was it 14?
or was it maybe it
I
was
think 14
14?
was the max.
And that's if he gets no new money. All right, that's basically Roethlisberger saying, you know what, I'm going to help the team out here. Let's restructure this thing, but I'm done after 2021 anyway.
Hmm.
Because to me, he's not going. Why would he sign a deal for no new money whatsoever uh, if he wasn't going to play? Because then he just setting himself up to year to be cut. Really, you
Hmm.
know. From there, so it's 14 something million is the max you can save, and that's not giving Ben any. And what I mean by new money, new guaranteed bonus money. Obviously, you have to structure the years, the next 4 years from it be. Obviously, you're working in 2021, so it'll be 22, 23, 24, and 25. You'd have to set up some sort of structure with potential base salaries in those years. But I'm talking about not giving them any new signing bonus to do that or anything. It's just basically creating false years on top of his 2021 final year, just so you can spread out turning his roster bonus and a big chunk of his base salary in the signing bonus. So I understand that's a possibility. Now, would Ben be willing to do that and just walk away after 2021? It's possible. And it would save the Steelers around $14 million if he did that. It just I'll believe it when I see it. Now, of course, backing up from there, uh, giving them any kind of guaranteed money as part of an extension would obviously start taking away from the amount of cap money that you can save in 2021 by either doing an extension or a restructure with them or anything along those lines. Now, obviously we're working under the assumption still that the cap will be 175 million. We don't know what that number is going to ultimately come in, and we won't know until probably after the season happens and all like that. But
Hmm.
that just goes to show you. I mean, you got a quarterback on a 40 something million dollar cap hit, and people just don't understand that because of the previous restructures and all. You know, he's got like 20 something $1 million in 2021 just in previous proration that stays in that year that does not go anywhere. You know.
Hmm. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for all the reasons you laid out, and not the last time we're talking about this stuff. And there are certainly difficult decisions on the horizon for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, expect this roster to look very different next year than it does today. Rick Williams, I wanted to hear the reaction to the camp schedule, which seems like enhanced OTA mini camp. Yeah, I mean, at the start of the training camp, it's COVID testing to start, and strength conditioning. And as Dave has said earlier, pads do not come on until August 17th. I think it's 2 weeks of padded practice. So it is definitely a slow ramp up to the year. And yeah, the first 2.5 weeks of camp is basically like OTAs. Russ Obenstein, love Dave explaining Mahomes' contract. Great to understand such a unique contract. Yeah, Dave did an excellent job of breaking that one down. Thank you, Russ. Glad you enjoyed it. Papa Bino's just got the news that Arian Springs tested positive for COVID again. He's on the COVID reserve list. That may mean he tested positive for it, but it also may mean that he was exposed to somebody who had it, and he's quarantining out of abundance of caution. So it's not a guarantee. We don't know, but we do wish him well, unless there's some news that hit in the last 20 minutes I'm not aware of.
And the team can't release that information
Right.
unless the player agrees to it. So uh, the assumption is yes, but not. I mean, it's not guaranteed. You know
Right.
that he indeed has it.
Exactly. ODG Dorkman, given the history of trading between the Steelers and the Raiders with Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown, what do you think the Raiders would do if the Steelers offered Juju Smith-Schuster to the Raiders for a third-round pick? Well, I think Oakland loaded up on receivers pretty heavily, and I think they would hang up on any Kevin Colbert offer for a receiver because that has been bad juju for them the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I mean, why would the Steelers? Why would the Steelers
Right.
trade that away? With him still being on a cheap you just don't have enough hay in the barn either to replace that either right now.
Right.
There, so uh, I mean, I just can't see that happening now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's see. Duck Swagger, if Barron had stayed, who do you think would have started this year, Barron or Williams? Well, if they kept Barron, they probably would have started Barron. Otherwise, why would they keep him? So it probably would have been Mark Barron.
You know, the other thing, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think you're going to see this maybe across the league, especially on some of these teams that are already, pushing high numbers against next year's cap. There, there are going to be a couple guys that lose their jobs this offseason that probably wouldn't have, thanks to the COVID and all like that. And I hate to keep bringing up his name. And I'm obviously not advocating it or saying this is what's going to happen. But Vince Williams is a guy that you got to pay close attention on right now. And why would teams look if they don't think they can get a high amount of snaps out of Vince, or if they have plans other than that, then he's a tough, it's a tough player to stick around when you can have that instant salary cap savings now and next year on top of it there. Once again, I'm not saying it's going to happen there, but I think you could see players like that around the NFL get the early walk and slip this offseason just because look, you can roll over excess money from leftover from cap space from year to year as well too. I'm just saying that in light of all that's happening there's going to be a couple of names come final cutdown day that might surprise some people just from the sheer fact that teams are also trying to plan for
Hmm.
future years moving forward there.
Yeah, it's a great point and something to keep in mind as teams try to find any advantage to rolling over some cap for next year when they know there's going to be such a difficulty. Doc, you're not going to get me to slip up here. I think you and the other guy. I'm not going to Ron Burgundy this one. I
Here,
hopefully I
here,
get.
here's the other thing.
Uh-huh.
Are they going to get now that they know a cap floor, for next year? What's are they going to get Cameron Hayward done?
Yeah, I think someone who would ask that. Russ asked that. Someone on the chat did ask, "Will it get done?" I still think it will get done. Just because I can't see Cam Hayward walking, and I think that's always been the intention. I think that with the reduced salary cap, your focus is on making sure you sign your star players. As you said, no middle class. You'll have your star players stay. Your bottom tier guys fill out the rest of the roster. Your middle class is gone. Cam Hayward clearly in that top tier, and I still think he's going to remain a Steeler.
And here I do as well too. And here's the thing on top of it here is I've started to run some numbers on this. And if they do a traditional kind of contract that you would think they would do, and if Cam Hayward's average yearly market value is right around, I don't know, 17 to 18.5 million dollars, they're not going to save a lot of money. That they might could save about two million in cap space maybe by doing a Cam Hayward extension this year, saving an additional 2 million. But this is a team right now that's 5.7 under the cap. They're going to use a million of that. They just signed their draft class, so a million of that's going to go to the draft class. So you're at about 4.7 million under the cap. You probably have to allow for a few more practice squad salaries than you originally thought that you're going to have to afford against the cap here, because they're going to go to a 16-man practice squad here. You still got a 52nd and 53rd player to get under contract moving forward here. And let's say you only save them, a 2 million on Cam Hayward, and you like to go into the season with, let's say, about $5 to $6 million in excess space in case you need to make some in-season moves there. Where's that going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's going to be one of the biggest challenges for this front office for Omar Khan to handle. So we'll see. I still think it gets done, though.
I think Hayward gets done. Look,
Yeah.
because once again, if you don't get it done, you're going to have to place a franchise tag on him next year. And are you going to be able to afford the initial tag amount?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Hopefully, I'm remembering how to pronounce this correctly. I think it's Xerxes Almighty. What do you think of Bruce Arians' idea, possibly pre-quarantining the third-string quarterback from the team in case of a COVID outbreak? Do you think COVID risk means teams will sign 3 quality quarterbacks? I get the idea in theory, but practice, how does that work literally in practice? That guy now can't practice with the rest of the team, I would imagine. Otherwise, he's around other guys. He can't be in the meetings with those guys. So I don't know in actual, executing the plan how that kind of quarantine would work, but concern taken. Rick Williams, I think we won't have the opportunity to trade Juju. If they don't tag him after this year, he is a free agent, and they won't trade him prior to the season. Yeah, Juju's not going to get traded. You want him there with Ben, and again, you have a roster that's capable of winning a Super Bowl. You're not trading pieces from that right before the year begins. K. Jackson, Pittsburgh. Alex, on your roster prediction, pre-training camp edition, you picked Paxton Lynch over Duck. Did you base that on Lynch's potential and draft pedigree? Do you feel the same, Dave? To answer your question, essentially, yes, that's what I did. I think it looked good in camp and practice. And Dave, I think you started the Paxton Lynch over Duck camp early in the offseason.
Yeah, and just based entirely off of what Kevin Colbert and kind of unsolicited kind of remarks, if you will, and really Tomlin, I think, for that matter too. It has nothing to do other than that and Duck not lighting the world on fire last year. Obviously, we're not going to see Paxton during the preseason or anything like that. So that's the flag that I planted in the hill. Earlier in the offseason there, and I'm probably going to stick with it. I have no reason not to, but it is based entirely off of pedigree, really, and kind of the comments that Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert have made about Lynch, really, essentially since the season ended.
Right, and in my roster edition prediction, as you saw, I'm sure, K. Jackson, I had them keeping Duck Hodges on the practice squad with 16 spots and potential for quarantine and illness and injury and all that. Probably smart to go ahead and keep that 4th quarterback this year. Let's see. Ivan Guerrera, how do you think about our cap space next year and all the people that need contracts? I think Dave laid that out very well earlier in the show. Patrick Donovan asks, 84 too low for Cam? I definitely thought top 30. I think Hayward is at least top 50, and sounds like you agree, Dave.
Look, you're talking about a top 5 interior defensive lineman in the NFL, unbiased anything, right? I mean, if you're building a list of top 5 kind of interior defensive linemen, he's got to be on it.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's
right.
He's a top 50 guy. He's a top 3, I think, interior defensive lineman.
So if he's there, he's got to at least be, I would think, within 50 or higher. I would think, if he came in at 50, would we be hollering that he's too low? Probably, but I could take the medicine a little bit easier had he been number 50. Look, I've been following this since NFL Network started in 2011. I get aggravated at it every year and I still watch it. I don't believe they get the amount of players voting on it that they claim that they do. it's all made for TV, so it's fun to bitch about, but you know, it is what it is.
Papa Beano's 2-1. Do you think the Steelers will look at drafting a later round guy in this year's draft, such as Trey Lance? Trey Lance might be the first quarterback taken. Probably not, but he'll be up there. So I don't think he's a later round guy. I think if they draft a quarterback, they're going to, if and when they do, it'll be all in. It'll be the air. It won't be a later round pick. K. Jackson, Pittsburgh. Do you think that Chase Claypool might be used as a tight end in certain formations? He seems to be a pretty effective blocker on tape. Dave, what do you think?
He's not putting his hand in the dirt.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, you can split him out, play him in the slot, and treat him as if he were like, kind of like a detached tight end.
Mhm.
Yeah. But he hasn't never played with his hand in the dirt, and he's not going to start now. No.
I agree. AJC, once the players get on the COVID reserve list, how long do they have to stay on? My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, is that there is no minimum maximum time for you to be on there. Now, you have to, if he has contracted the virus, he has to test. It depends if he's asymptomatic or not, but if basically he's got to test negative twice and will probably miss about 10 days before he's allowed back into the facility. So there is no minimum maximum, but there is a lengthy protocol you have to go through to get clearance.
Yeah, and I think I included that in the article
Hmm.
today that I wrote, and it was from a memo that was released by the league, I think, or snuck out from the league early in July, and all like that. I don't think there's a time frame. I don't think you put him on. It's like a 10-day or a 14-day or anything like that. I think just as soon as obviously you would think that the player probably had to quarantine for 2 weeks or something, right?
Well, yeah, we were talked about this whenever it first came out, but you're right, it was kind of quietly in July, and you have it on screen right now for you guys to look at. But if he tested positive, again, we do not know that, but if he is asymptomatic, it's no return unless until 10 days have passed since initial positive test, or 5 days has passed in 2 consecutive negative tests, and it's less than approved by the club. If he is symptomatic, it's basically he's out for definitely 10 days, at least 3 days since symptoms have passed, and then has to get returned, get the approval by the club as well. So I think basically if you test positive, you're gonna effectively be out 7 days minimum, probably closer to 10. If you have symptoms, then obviously you gotta wait until you're asymptomatic again. So that's the scenario, and we're seeing that with baseball right now with the Marlins and the craziness there, and how impactful an outbreak to one team can be on the rest of the league. Talk about that more in tomorrow's podcast. Pablo Martinez, speaking of podcasts, listening to Tuesday podcast, it made me realize how bad we've drafted cornerbacks in the last 20 years. You think it's scouts, coaching, or the style of defense? I think it was kind of all the above. I think there was some poor evaluation. I think it was a different schematical philosophy of less emphasis on great athletes, less emphasis on great playmakers, more the Dick LeBeau stuff the run, tackle the catch kind of guys, and it didn't lend itself to having big hits at the cornerback position. But at least they've wised up and just kind of threw a bunch of money at the position with Hayden and Nelson, and that's worked well for them. Aaron Young, do you think Minka's stats take a hit this year after a year on tape in this defense? Dave, what do you think?
I mean, look, I mean, interceptions. I don't think you can really plan on those things, especially how some of them happen. He had a couple of tipped ones and all like that. I mean, what kind of stats are we talking about? Interceptions? I think he can hit. I think he can hit 4 or 5.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I would have flipped that question around and say, yeah, there's a year of tape for offenses to watch him, but there's a year of tape for him to be in this system and in this scheme and to be moved around more and to not be just in center field where offenses could avoid him. So I think if anything, I mean, interceptions, like you said, are fluky and they come and go, but I think his stats and his impact will be in some ways greater because he'll be integrated in the system, he'll be more versatile, and it'll be harder to hide him the way they kind of hit him last year.
Look, we've hit on this. I don't know. This will be time number like 77, I think. But this defense playing together, you have so many of these pieces back together. This defense should fly around this year. I mean, right
Hmm.
out of the chute too. Got a guy like Devin Bush another year. Comfortable in the system. Should know everything that's going on right from the get go this year. Minka should be more comfortable in this defense. Obviously, by now. You had the opportunity to rotate these guys a lot more and kind of disguise it a little bit more so than just having Minka hang out on the post, if you will, there. So I think you can do a lot of different things here that will So, and look, I mean, the pass rush should be still be good. I understand you're not going to have Javon Hargrave there, but I mean, the pass rush should be good. And if pass rush and coverage are working hand in hand, that's when things happen, man. If you're able to get pressure with 3 and 4 guys, which this defense was able to do last year, and should be able to do out of the shoot this year, if they're able to do that, it's all going to work. And at that point, I don't care where the stats come from,
Hmm.
they'll be there. They should be there.
Amen to that. K Jackson, with 2021 cap uncertainty, would you try to extend Ben and sign Cam this year to lower your number next year? Dave, I know you kind of alluded to that, but if you give a kind of succinct answer.
Yeah, there's just no way you're gonna. I don't think extend Ben now because I mean you're already dealing with a 40-something million cap number next year. That would you know if you're going to do any extension with Ben to kind of work on his cap number, it's going to come next year. You're not going to do anything. You already restructured his contract this year, so you can't do anything with it now.
Hmm. Yeah, but Cam, which you said might not even really lower your cap hit, would it?
Yeah, Cam, if let's say Cam, he's due like $9.5 million in old money this year. Uh, for him to sign a deal right now that averages a new money average of let's say around 17.5 to $18.5 million, you're probably going to have to give Cam a total take in 2020 of I don't know, 20 to $23 million probably, and a good chunk of that's probably going to would have to be a signing bonus, obviously, that gets stretched over 5 years for cap purposes there. So even so, and with his past with Cam Hayward's past bonus proration number, which I think is already sitting at like 3,200 or something along those lines, you're not going to be able to lower his cap number, but maybe $2 to $3 million at the most here. But yes, now is the time to do Cam. There's one guy that's got to be right now in their target to get extended between now and the start of the regular season, and that's Cameron Hayward. And I think it gets done, and I think the total deal comes out around when you include old money with new money, right around $80 million, and it will run 4 more years on top of this year. So that would put him at 20, 21, 22, 23, running through 2024. And the total amount of the deal, including the 9.5 million in old money, should be right around 80 million.
All right, there you go. Good breakdown there. Sully Mangelani, how well do you guys think the Steelers match up against KC? As good as KC was, they trailed all 3 postseason games, and I felt like with how well the D plays with the lead, the Steelers win if they played. Yeah, I mean, obviously the potential for a shootout there. The defense, a great Steelers defense, a great Chiefs offense, ability to get pressure on the quarterback. Yeah, they could definitely hang. I mean, I think this roster's talented, offense, defense. Obviously, a lot centers around Ben, but when if this team's firing on all cylinders, they can hang with anybody, Chiefs included.
Yeah, look, I mean, the main thing is Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, you got
Hmm.
got to get pressure on him.
Yep.
You got to make him not play his game,
Hmm.
and that's obviously the key. I think the way we're looking, assuming everybody stays healthy and Ben comes, starts the season okay and all like that, then I think the Steelers offense could hang with this with the Chiefs defense. I think the only question is, and I think on paper the Steelers right where we sit right now, the Steelers defense matches up pretty decent with the Chiefs off. That'd be a great game. I'd love to watch that be the AFC Championship game.
Amen to that. Got more questions before we wrap up the stream. Thank you guys for being here today, Dave, and I appreciate it. Russ Openstein asked about the Cam extension. We still think it's going to get done. Xander in Oregon, Dave, do you know of any analysis of team success based on how much of a salary cap is tied up with the quarterback, the running back, defensive stars, etc.? This may be too reductionist. Player talent as salaries. Any math there for you?
I mean, no. I mean, I haven't done it. I know some people have, but the thing is, when you're looking at cap numbers and trying to create an equal field across the board for all 32 teams and going over the years and success, if you have to look at kind of raw numbers too, because if a team like the Steelers, you've got restructures mixed in there. It's not the player's fault that it's
Hmm.
not Ben Roethlisberger's fault that he has a $41 million cap number next year. All right, it wasn't originally structured to be that way, but the Steelers went to him needing cap space and restructure his contract, which has forced his cap number up. So, I, it's kind of hard to go across a whole league and research who's restructured, who hasn't restructured, and all. That's why when you see these kind of analysis for on different blog sites or whatever for different teams, saying, well, they have the offense is X amount percent of cap numbers. Well, that's all fine and good, but how much is that is restructure from 2018?
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying there?
Right.
So it's kind of hard to do an across the board kind of analysis like that. And I don't think it's fair to look at any team in any one year and say, well, they've got, 80% of their cap money tied up in offense. Well, how much of that's true cap? I think the
Mhm.
best way to look at it maybe is from a cash standpoint. How much cash do they have tied up in their whole roster this year, versus cap, because cash and cap are two different things.
Right. Very important difference there. Patrick Donovan, Dave, do pictures do the stadium there justice? I see he's talking about the new Vegas stadium. I don't know if you've gotten a look at it yet, Dave, or not.
Oh, if you talk about that, well, obviously I haven't been inside yet, but it looks like something out of Star Wars on the outside. And look, when you drive, the interstate really behind, it kind of sits right behind a couple of those big, like I think it's is it Mandalay Bay or on down towards that end of the strip there. I mean, you obviously when you're on the interstate headed that way, I mean, it's right there and you can't miss it. That's for sure. Big shiny black thing. I mean, it looks like somewhere the Raiders would play. And obviously, the news here, they've had tours go through it and all like that. But it looks like a work of art, and it looks like a place I do not want to be on a Sunday.
Cameron Pittsburgh, keep up the great work, guys. The live stream is always entertaining and informative. Thank you, Cameron. Patrick Donovan, will the NFL do something about dead cap charge in the coming years? Quickly, Dave, if you have, I don't have any insight for that. If you do, feel free to share it.
Oh no, dead money's dead money. I mean, I guess that's what he's getting at, right?
I guess, yeah. I don't know what he wants them to do about it. I mean, teams know if they're going to get dead money if they're cutting a player, whatever. That's their own choice.
Yeah, dead money's dead money. There's not going to be any do overs or mulligans when it
Hmm.
comes to that whatsoever. Teams just going to have to work around their dead money. I think we're the real and look, we're going to be there's going to be talk about this $175 million cap number in 2021 from here on the rest of the season and all. And there's going to be people say cap hell, this, that, and the other. The truth of the matter is that's just a floor. That's just the lowest amount. Until we see how this season goes, it's kind of hard to speculate. Obviously, most of the writing that I'll do will be based on, well, what happens if it's a worst case scenario of 175 million. My heart of hearts tells me that the league would not come up settle on kind of a number there unless they thought that was truly going to be a worst case scenario.
Hmm.
I.e., I'm betting the league thinks they're going to still come out of this okay. Not great shape, but okay. Now, could it very easily still wind up being 175 million? Obviously, yeah, because that's the floor number. But it's going to be hard to work off of any sort of numbers until maybe we get halfway through the season here. But even so, it's all going to be projection because the league's not going to turn any of those numbers over. We're not going to know what the real cap number is in 2021, probably until about middle late February, right?
Yeah, we won't know the official number. We'll get a sense for it, obviously, based on if there are any fans in stands and what that climate is like and all that. But yeah, to the point about, oh, look what the Steelers did. They're in cap hell. I know they've always been tight against the cap, but no one can predict for a global pandemic that alters, the world history book. So it's hard to fault the Steelers for that, if you're asking
Right.
me.
I mean, look. The original plan was probably going to be that after the TV deals hit next offseason. I mean,
Hmm.
you could have even seen potentially maybe a bigger spike
We were
than
talking about that not too long ago, weren't we? Like,
right,
is the
right,
cap going to go through the roof?
right. You could probably see instead of the cap going up $10 million or so, maybe going to go up like 18 or 19.
Hmm.
And that's how teams were planning. Nobody plans for. I don't. At least I don't think Omar Khan was planning for a pandemic.
Right.
to happen there. So I mean, yeah, look, it's something that look. I love this stuff. This is my porn talking this kind of stuff here. But even so, it's gonna be a lot of guessing going on as this season progresses. And yeah, we'll work off 175 million as a worst case scenario and all like that. But until we know the final number, you know, we're just guessing here. The
We are.
49ers announced the signing of Charlie Warner today.
Hey, kudos to him, your man from Georgia.
my,
Him and
my
George
buddy
Kittle.
Charlie Warner.
Papa Beanos, do you guys think that Mike Hilton has what it takes to be a starting corner, not in the slot? I mean, he's a slot corner, so on the outside, no. I think the size limitations would be too great against Mike Evans of the world, but he's a very good slot corner. Patrick Donovan also asked if there will be cap rollover. There still will be cap rollover, correct, Dave?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Teams will still be able to roll over excess, unused cap, and in the Steelers' case, there's not going to be much of that.
Yeah. Ning Nong for you says Steeler fan in Bangkok, Thailand. Hey, thank you very much. Very cool. Thank you for being here for the stream. I'm sorry it's been raining every day. And our last question comes from Darren Dalton. If the Steelers end up having another bad season without injuries being a major part of it, what gets more of a look for the reason behind it? Players or coaching staff, or maybe even both? Probably both if injuries aren't involved. We'll have to answer that if and when we cross that bridge. I think though, if there is good health, it's hard to see this team having a bad season.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to answer for it if they do, though,
Right?
and
Sure.
probably starts at the top with Kevin Colbert, obviously, and
Mm-hmm.
then the next man obviously would be Mike Tomlin there. So, if injuries are part of the game, injuries are going to happen. Hopefully, there's not a lot of them, but this team is built pretty decent depth-wise when it comes to experience as well, too. So they should be able to players not named Roethlisberger absorb a couple of those, you would think. So yeah, if this, the expectations should be that not only that this team makes the playoffs, but they win a couple of games past there on top of it. And as the way this roster will potentially churn next offseason, this might be their best chance to 2020 might be their best chance to win one for the next, I don't know, 3 years.
Yeah, well, if you get then to Ben retirement, then who knows what that bridge will be like. So yeah, I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to write about that at some point before the year. That this I know we say this a lot, but 2020 really may be the Steelers' best chance. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the stream. Thank you for being here, Dave. Thank you for the chat for being here. Again, if you missed the full version of this, there's an archive that'll go up on Steelers Depot. It'll be archived on my YouTube channel. It'll be archived wherever you listen to Terrible Podcast, and we'll have the Terrible Podcast tomorrow and Friday as well. So, Dave, thank you so much for being here. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I certainly do appreciate it. Peace and love to all of you.
Yep, thank you, chat. We will talk to you guys next time. Again, take care and be safe.